Hey guys, how you going? So today on BKR Sport, we are back for the World Rugby Review. We do this every single Tuesday, regardless of if there's any rugby on, because guess what? Right now, there is no International Rugby on, and this sucks. This is shit house. I hate it. I hate it. I love my International Rugby, and we're not going to get any until, buddy, February, so with the Six Nations, so decent time in between drinks. Decent damn well time. Love my drinks, and there's a decent time between drinks. So unfortunately, there will be no rugby action until February, but in the same sense, we still do this every single Tuesday. So regardless, buddy, tune in. Subscribe right now. Notification bell right now. Thumbs up right now. But today, guys, we're going to be going through 12 teams in World Rugby and giving them a grading system. An A+, B, C, buddy, F. There is an F here. Ooh, who's getting the F? There is an F here. There is a buddy big old fat fail. A big old fat fail, so you're going to have to watch and, buddy, find out. But Italy are included here, guys. They are in the top 12 for me. Yes, obviously they're 14th, below Tonga and Georgia, but in reality, they're not below Tonga and Georgia, so they will be here. But let's just get into the video and let's talk about all these 12 teams and what I think they did in the 2020 calendar year. Just quickly, guys, I want to knock out the first two teams that obviously didn't play any rugby this year. South Africa is the first one, obviously. They were in number one at the beginning of the year and finished in number one because they didn't play any rugby. Now, yes, you could argue the fact that they kind of chose to not play any rugby. It was their choice. Yes, the pandemic was there, but it was also used as a bit of an excuse. But in the same sense, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to use that as an example because I could say an F because of that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give them a fat NA, but obviously they have to get an NA, not applicable, because they didn't play any rugby. They're still in first. They're still a great team as far as we're damn well aware. Obviously, we haven't seen them play in over a year's time now since they won the World Cup, but I'll give them an NA. Unfortunately, they didn't play. Would have loved to have seen them play, but they didn't. Also, Japan, obviously, they started off the season in 8th and they finished it up in 10th. But in reality, I think if they actually had have been playing, they would have finished above Scotland. They could have potentially even finished above Australia into that top 6 if they had have played that full season. But then again, Australia would have played a full season too. But considering the Autumn Nations Cup was there and the Tri Nations was there, if they were able to play a lot of those minnow teams that weren't in those two competitions, they would have beaten all those other minnow teams, like your Tongas, like your USAs, like your Samoas, like your Spain, Uruguay. That's the point. So Japan would have gotten quite a decent rankings boost from that, and more than likely probably jumped, maybe not Australia. Maybe not Australia, but they would have definitely jumped Scotland, so they would have probably jumped into 7th. But we can't do that. You give them an NA. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see them play any rugby this year. We don't know what they're like because obviously we got to see them on a home ground turf in front of home ground fans in a World Cup to see how fantastic they are. They could still regress. We don't know what they're like right now. So NA, they're in 10th, but in reality, they're only 0.07 behind Wales and they didn't get to play a game. So granted. Okay, so the first team that we're going to be talking about is the Italians, Italy. They started off the year in 12th place and like I said before, they finished off in 14th below Georgia and Tonga. Now, as I say every week, and we're not going to go too far into this, rankings aren't exactly reflective of what the actual situation is, simply because Italy play all the bigger teams and lose. Georgia and Tonga play all the small teams and usually win. Obviously, Georgia played in the Autumn Nations Cup this year, but it's not usually like that. So, unfortunately, this has a ginormous effect on this, and because Italy keep losing, they lose ranking points too. So, in reality, I'm putting them in here. Italy, bit of Italian action. Woohoo! You guys know it. If you guys watch these World Rugby reviews, I don't mind the Italians right now. I think they are looking quite quality going forward into the future, and genuinely, I don't think they're going to be really in the next 10 years, you know, challenging your Kiwis and your Englands, your Wallabies, your South Africas, your Irelands. I don't think they're going to be that level at all. And I don't even necessarily believe they're going to be a top 10 level because of the financial situation and the fact that Italy is such a football, soccer-centric country. I know England's the same, but it's also a different story with England. Italy is such a football-centric country, so I don't actually know if they'll ever be able to get the funding and get the assistance that they need to improve their organisation and improve the rugby in the country, especially when there's all these bloody bullshit rumours floating around about them too. So, look, I think Italy had a pretty decent year this year. Six Nations, they were pretty shit house. They weren't great in Six Nations. They lost a decent amount of games there. But in regards to the Autumn Nations Cup, although they lost their games, they also did look pretty decent. You know, they led Scotland up until the last 10 minutes of the game, and they're very expansive, very fluid, very open to their play. They're a quality-looking attacking flair team from the Northern Hemisphere, which you don't find much. Usually Northern Hemisphere is very defensive grind. We talk about this all the time. France is on the opposite end. They're the peak of that really encouraging attacking flair from the Northern Hemisphere. Italy, probably in that second spot right now. Just not quality overall. So, look, I think Italy had a pretty decent season this year. I think that, yeah, that All Nations Cup really showed that they were decent. They were up against the French for 30 minutes too. So, and they didn't get to play Fiji, unfortunately, and they did lose to Wales in the end. But they were pretty good for the first half, and then just fell apart in the second half, which is something they need to improve on. But I'm going to give them, considering what kind of team they are, I'm going to give them a bit. I think this has been a pretty decent year for them. I think it's shown a lot from them, and I think going forward, they're going to be pretty happy about what they showed this year and can improve on it for the Six Nations. Will they get smacked up in the Six Nations? More than likely. But that's because they're playing the best damn well teams in the world. You've got to remember that. But yet when they play all the lower teams, they're going to beat them and beat them well too. So that's what you've got to remember, and I think that Italians will be very happy with the B. Next up, we have Fiji. Now, Fiji started off the year in 11th and also finished the year in 11th. This was very close to being an NA area, simply because they only played the one game. Now, you can argue the fact that they played one game due to their lack of discipline, because obviously all these other teams didn't have the virus and were able to do all these preventative measures to prevent them from getting the virus. So why Fiji? It's because someone obviously didn't probably listen. That's just me assuming. So that's why I'm not going to use that as an example. But in the same sense, they should have played more games. They were supposed to play the All Nations Cup. And unfortunately, they only got to play the one game. Looked pretty quality in that game. Defensively, not great, but that's what Fiji is like. That game wasn't reflective of how Fiji and Georgia would play on a normal game at all. Fiji would win by probably more than that, and Georgia wouldn't score anywhere near as many points as that. I think that Fiji, obviously, going forward, are a very quality attacking outfit, and defensively, they just need to admire what the French are doing to kind of link up with that style. They need to be structurally attacking, which is what France do. France are a very advanced version of Fiji, but Fiji will never change. Fiji is always going to be the same. So that's the thing to remember with the Fijians. They'll always be the same, playing the same. But hopefully you can try and teach them some defense. Attacking-wise, there's no point having a coach. So the fact of the matter is, I think that Fiji showed enough in that game, but I don't think that this year, we're basing it off this year, I don't think you can really give them anything more than a C. Give them a C. It's a pass. Happy with their win. Need to see a lot more from them. Quality going forward. Look forward to seeing them next year. But I think a C, based on what's happening this year, is a fair enough result. Starting off the year, we had Argentina in 10th. Now they are in 8th. So they've jumped 2 spots. They've jumped above Japan, and they've also jumped above the Welsh. Now, Argentina, look, they were decent. They were decent, but I think people are overrating them a little bit. Now, last week, obviously, someone said, oh, why are you talking shit about their attack? Like, obviously, they haven't played in over a year and a half. Have you even weighed that into the opinion? Like, yes, I have. Of course I have. But their attack was horrific. Their attack was, honestly, worse than Italy's, right? So, their defense, I'd honestly put them top 2 defense, if not, one of the best defenses in the world right now, especially if it's raining. If it's raining, don't even think about it. So I think there's still a little bit of improvement. Maybe second. But in the same sense, like when they played against Australia on that pouring down rain day on the final game of the Tri Nations, everyone's going to struggle. South Africa, New Zealand, England, anyone would struggle against the Argentinians that day. And, there's no guarantee you'd actually get the result that you would more than likely think for those big-time teams. I think Argentina, obviously, yes, they did obviously have that year and a bit off without playing anything. I think that obviously they jumped from 10th to 8th, so that's pretty damn well quality. And they did come second, which was not exactly expected of them at all. But in the same sense, their attack is just so horrific and their defense is so quality that you can't really give them an A this situation. I think they're probably better than Scotland. I think you should probably move. They should probably be in 7th. They're only 0.5 below Scotland too, so fair enough. But for me, I'm going to give them a B. I'm going to give them a B based on the fact that they did exceed expectations, but they weren't phenomenal, guys. They won their first game against New Zealand in a perfect performance, but then the second game, they drew with Australia, and it just wasn't great. And really, they should have lost because the Wallabies missed the kick. Reece Hodge, we'll get into you in a second. the third game they played New Zealand, and defensively they were great. They were down 17-0, but they were defensively great. And then their attack, because they were trying so hard to score and get back into the game, gave them 2 freebie intercept tries, and you can't blame the defense for that. So that's why that blowout, they got beaten like 38-0 or some shit like that against New Zealand. And then the fourth game, they drew again with Australia. So, and they should have lost that one realistically too, because Reece Hodge missed the kick. But like I said, very difficult game to beat them in. So I think a B is a fair result for them. I think that going forward, I don't know whether they're going to improve, because obviously the Jaguares are not going to be in the Super Rugby next year. I don't know what happens with the Jaguares. They're probably going to be in a, we've spoken about this on a video, so I won't talk about that. But going forward, it really will rely on how that Jaguares situation is sorted out. So that's what I look forward to seeing. Argentina, decent enough year, not a fantastic year, but not a shit-house year by any means. You'd be very happy with it. So, a B. Scotland were in 9th at the beginning of the year, and they jumped up to 7th. So, they jumped above, who did they jump above? Japan and the Welsh. They jumped into 7th, which they'd be pretty happy with there. This Automations Cup, they didn't look exactly fantastic, but they also played basically a second-string team and really mixed it up a lot. Six Nations was not impressive, but in the same sense, they didn't do too badly there. And they jumped 2 spots. I think personally they should be below Argentina, like I said, but in the same sense that that attack is just poor from Argentina. So, you know what? You can easily 50-50 discuss that Scotland-Argentina ranking, and you'd be right on both accounts, more than likely, in my personal opinion. I think that Scotland, considering that they didn't really do what they wanted to do in that Automations Cup, I think that because they played such a... I think that because they played such a weaker team, they wouldn't really have cared. And the fact that they've gone up 2 spots this year is still pretty impressive. And I think going forward, Six Nations is going to look very much better for them as a whole. They are going to try and look to improve based on that poor effort last year in the World Cup. So I think for Scotland, I'm going to give them a B as well. I think it's, it's fine. I just think that if they had played their full strength team, we would have seen a lot more from them. And we've got to look to the Six Nations to see how that goes. So yeah, look, I think B... Be happy with it. Not extraordinary. Still lost a few damn more games. Didn't look great against the Italians, but still won. Got decently beaten in the end by the Irish, but in the same sense, it is what it is. Decent team. Happy with the B. Starting off the year in 7th. Wow, the French. Here we are. The old Français. Started off the year in 7th, and now they are in 4th. And if they had beat England in that Automations Cup final, they would have been, I think, 2nd above England and New Zealand, which is just unbelievable. What a huge jump. But obviously, they didn't win it. You have definitely got to weigh in the fact that that was a second-string team. That wasn't their first-string team by any means, and that was the whole tournament. And yet they... You could argue won all games, but didn't win all games. But, they didn't get to play Fiji, but they beat Italy, and they beat whoever the other team was. I can't remember who it was. Who was the other team? Italy, Scotland. They beat Scotland as well. Didn't look great for the first half. Slow starters, but blew up in the second half. Six Nations, they were pretty decent as well. I think you've got to give them an A. I don't think you get an A+, because they didn't obviously win a tournament this year. You have to win a tournament to get an A+, but I think it's definitely an A season for them. A very quality year. Looking very good for the future. If they had played their first string team, they probably would have won, and it would have been an A+, 100%. They would have been 2nd. It would have been just ginormous 2020, considering the situation. But I think 2020, they'll go in as favourites, yeah. I think they'll go in as favourites. They're looking really young, really fresh, and you wait to that Six Nations in February, holy shit. We're going to be streaming this, and holy shit, they're going to be looking the goods. The goods. Anyway, guys, that's going to do us for this World Rugby review. This has probably been separated into 2 parts. I'll probably put one part out this week and one part out next week, because it's just going to be too long otherwise. So I'll probably separate it. So if you haven't seen the other teams right now, then go back and obviously check out last week's video, or wait for next week's video for the other half. But appreciate you guys as always. Obviously, if you love your rugby content, you love your sport, go down there, hit that subscribe button, join the BK Army. Appreciate you. Hit that notification bell as well. Obviously, smack that thumbs up button if you haven't already. I do appreciate it. And comment below what your thoughts are, what your grades are. Obviously, this is just my opinions. I'm not a professional necessarily, I just put my opinions on here, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So let me know what your thoughts are below. If you think I'm a dickhead, if you think I'm right, buddy, bingo, love it. All right, guys, I'm going to jump off. I appreciate you as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.